the number one fear that people have is speaking in public. And I think that's a really interesting statistic because, like, I would understand if speaking led to death, like that would be why it's the number one fear. It doesn't, though. I don't know that I've ever heard in all my years of speaking somebody getting up, being spared speaking, and dying. So we don't have to worry about that. Though we still have to deal with that fear of public speaking. And being that it's Halloween, the holiday for fear and stuff going on, we thought we would have a conversation today to talk about overcoming the fear of public speaking. And I am joined today by Andrew de Souza, who it is his first time being live. So we're super excited. Is there any fear going on in you or any nervousness going on in you being live for the very first time?
Oh, definitely. I'm excited, but of course I'm panicking as hell because this is my first time as well. Yeah.
Well, we're super excited to have you with us today as we talk a little bit about delivering presentations. How do we overcome that fear? It's something that I know I was totally scared of speaking in public. If the person that had invited me to BNI the very first time I went to a chapter meeting had told me I was going to have to stand up and talk for 30 seconds in front of a group of 20 people, I wouldn't have gone to the meeting. Like, that's how scared I was of speaking in public. Now, I've gotten over that, being that I'm a public speaker now. I actually have a book on, doing presentations. But it's something that so many people struggle with. And speaking in public can be an amazing way to grow your business. And Andrew actually has a couple tips today that he's going to share with us. But before we get into those tips, I do want to tell you a little bit about Andrew, who is coming to us from across the world. So it is 8 a.m. where I am. How late is it where you are?
It's 8 p.m. over here in Singapore.
So
yes.
Morning and evening, we've got 12 hours across. He's in Singapore. He's been in BNI for 12 years, getting close to my favorite lucky number, especially on Halloween, 13. He likes to be known as the notorious networker. He believes while the art of networking isn't rocket science, it certainly is a skill set that needs to be developed. And I agree with you on that. I like to joke it's not rocket science, but maybe it can be rocket fuel for us. Having spent most of his adulthood as a BNI member, he enjoys the relationship that he's gotten to build here. Over the years, BNI has given him the opportunity to meet many useful connections and great friends. Now, I'm curious, Andrew, how old were you when you joined BNI?
I think I was 22, coming 23 when I first came across BNI. That was back in 2009.
Wow, that is awesome.
Yeah.
I think I got involved. I was just sitting here doing the math. I think 26 was my age when I got into BNI, but kudos for you for getting there sooner. That's a good way to do it. And then something nobody knows about Andrew is he actually met his wife through BNI. So you're one of those handful of lucky BNI couples that BNI has not only helped your business, helped the personal life as well. So we're super excited to have you here to share your tips. Though before I kick it over to you, I do have here on the screen for those of you on Facebook, we would love to have you comment, have some conversation with us. And so if you're on Facebook, you can comment, but you do need to go to this here on the screen, chat.restream.io/FB. That will let Facebook know who you are, or just put your name in the comments, the easy way to do it. YouTube and LinkedIn, super easy. It's auto-linked. You're good to go. But let's get into this nitty-gritty, talking about overcoming the fear of public speaking. So give us some tips, give us some recommendations.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Tiffanie. I think it will be really inappropriate for me to not start this evening by just recognizing everyone who is here. I think online, as you know, it's morning in the US. In Singapore, it's kind of like late evening. I know I have a couple of friends who have made time. So my heartfelt thanks goes to everyone who have made time to come on here to support me. This is really my first time. And of course, it's truly my honor to be sharing this segment, or I'll say this screen time with this awesome lady here, Tiffanie Kellog, someone who not only has interviewed Dr. Ivan Meisner, the founder of BNI, but has received multiple endorsements and also special mentions from him on his blog for her work she has been doing over all these years. So thank you so much, Tiffanie. I mean, I matched one of Dr. Ivan Meissner's common grounds, which is finding a wife in BNI. Now I have the honor to also share the stage with you. So thank you so much for this. So
Thank you.
we all know when it comes to public speaking, I think this is one of the worst fears or most common fears that I believe a lot of us face out there. So I think I would like to just start by I think understanding what does this FEAR fear actually means. There, someone told me this definition some time back, and he said that fear is false expectations appearing real. So I believe a lot of times we create this very high expectations on ourselves. It's not that we want to underachieve, but a lot of times we have this perfect image that today if I'm invited to do a speech, I must be doing really good. I have to ace it as though I'm a world-class speaker. And a lot of times when we go with so high expectations, I think it creates this unnecessary pressure. And end of the day, what happens is we crumble and we panic, and end of the day we freaked out. And a lot of times because of that, I believe some of us don't dare to take that leap of faith to go out there to actually try it. So what's most important before even I move into the tips is that manage your expectations. uh, Understand that you can't be perfect at the first go. Public speaking, I think it's about embracing the growth mindset. Really try it. It's like tonight, this evening, it's me coming on live, trying as well. Definitely, I think after this, when I watch the video, I'll be laughing at myself. But I think the important thing here is to attempt more. And as you attempt, I think you will get better along the way. Don't you agree, Tiffanie?
See, things that go wrong when you're live. I muted to
Yeah.
keep the background noise out.
Oh, sorry.
I remember a video coach talking, you're better to start now and you'll get better and better. And like you said, you're going to be watching the video and laughing. I cringe sometimes when I watch my videos from like 10 or 15 years ago or 2 months ago. Like, oh my gosh, these were so, However, it's one of those things of practice and doing it over and over and over and over again. And we get so much better the more that we practice. And so, yeah, I think that we just have to start. We have to do it. And eventually it gets less fearful, perhaps.
Yes, definitely. I mean, thankfully for us, we have BNI. On a weekly basis, we have to stand up and do our 1 minute, or in Singapore, it's 30 seconds presentation about our business. For those of you who haven't heard about BNI, this weekly presentation that we do, it's kind of similar to an elevator pitch, sorry, which we do. So some of us have been doing it for years. So I think we'll get better along the way. Right now, if we turn back the time, I think if you look back from the first days we came to BNI, definitely I think a lot of us can all resonate that we have all seen quite a bit of improvements because we have been constantly perfecting this craft of ours. What do you think, Tiffanie?
Yeah, I think BNI is great because it's an environment of people. They're not trying to be professional speakers. We're just trying to share about a business that we're passionate about. So it's already something that we have passion around. And we get to practice at least 52 times a year, plus the featured presentation, which if you're in a 100-member chapter is only once a year. If you're in a 20-minute chapter, is several times a year. It gives us that opportunity to practice. And for those of you out there that are also thinking, I don't know how big Toastmasters is in Singapore. Do you have a big Toastmasters contingent
Yeah, I think
there?
the community here is quite vibrant as well. Yeah, so
Yeah, so
that's really one of the go-to spaces to really brush up your public speaking because I think they are really the professionals in that
yes,
area.
yes. So let's go before you get into tip number one. We've got a couple
Yes.
people commenting here. So
Oh, nice.
Murtaza shares BNI Works from Kenya. Yes, definitely. We've got a happy face coming in from Chia,
Oh,
perhaps.
he's cool.
Oh, okay.
I
There you
see.
go.
Oh, I see
Ah,
Daniel as well.
and we've got Daniel coming in. Good evening and amazing subject. So, all right, I know we're highly anticipating tip number one. Are we ready for tip number one? Almost.
Yes. Let's start with tip number one. But just a disclaimer before we move on. None of these tips here that I'm about to share, it's I don't lay any claim to any of them. All of them, I was fortunate enough to learn these tips from different people over the years. So thankfully tonight I have this opportunity to share this with all of you, and these have worked for me, and I hope it can work for you as well. So the first tip I have that we can use to prepare for, to overcome our fear of public speaking, right, is to is to have visualization exercises. I can recall, Tiffanie, the first time when I was invited to do a speech in front of a live audience, I was only about 20, coming 20. And I think that time, the first thing I did to prepare for that main event was to spend time lying on my bed and visualizing about how the event will look like. So the first thing I did was I spent 5 to 10 minutes daily visualizing. So I visualized how it would feel like to be standing in front in a room full of audience. And can you imagine, Tiffanie, when I did that, my heart literally sank and I could feel chills coming down my spine. And just like what happened to me when I just came on this evening, I kick myself again and I say, what did I just sign up for? Gosh, this is really the real thing. So as I went on throughout the week, I visualized myself doing different things. Of course, I imagine myself acing the presentation. I visualize myself engaging the crowd and the crowd enjoying the whole presentation. And of course, as each visualization exercise goes on, I feel that my nerves happen to calm down, and I felt much better about the whole thing. Obviously, on the day itself, I was still nervous as hell, but I think the visualization exercises really helped me. I think prepared my mental state so that when I go there, I was able to kind of like go through the flow, and at least hide some of my nervousness in front of the crowd. Yeah, so visualization is definitely very, very important.
Yeah, I love the idea of the visualization. Sometimes I'm visualizing, okay, is it a standing ovation? Is it people giving me money for books? Is it referrals flowing in? Is it clapping? Like, what does that look like? And because I'm a results oriented gal, that can help me sometimes. Like, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm making happen. And if I know, like in my BNI chapter, I've got, a couple people that are the cheerleaders. They're always big smiles. They're engaged. And so I try to think about, even when I'm visualizing, who are my cheerleaders so that I can see their big smiles in my head. And I laugh because my poor husband gets dragged sometimes to bigger speaking engagements that I do to help out with the back of the room books and such. He is not a good cheerleader.
I see.
He's
Why
a
so?
very even kill, like he's not going to do big smiles and thumbs up. So I try and pick who are those people that are going to give me those big smiles and thumbs up. I remember one of my early Ascentive conferences that I was doing, and I had the pleasure of speaking after Dr. Meisner on how to speak in public. I'm like, great, that's the presentation I'm following. How wrong can I go? But Paula was in the audience, and she's big smiles all the time. So I'm like, there was my anchor. And I knew she would be in the room to help give that. So I even visualize sometimes the people that I know that will give me that positive feedback.
I see. That's fantastic. So really going into point number two, which is tip number two, it's exactly what you just mentioned. And this is about familiarizing yourself with the surroundings. So this one, I have to credit one of my childhood friends. His name is Gordon, and Gordon is an excellent speaker, by the way. And what I actually learned from Gordon is this. He had this very interesting habit back then when we were attending seminars together. At the end of the seminar, when everyone was clearing the grounds, he would drag me up on stage and he will go through this exercise with me to say that, hey, Andrew, this is how it feels to be speaking to a group of like 100 people, 300 people, so on and so forth. Of course, yes, the crowd is dispersing, but you will see two city guys visualizing themselves and familiarizing ourselves with the stage and getting the vibes of the whole event. In 2 weeks' time, as you know, BNI Singapore is hosting the global convention. So if you see me sticking up on stage, it's not because I'm going up for some awards. I'm going there to just feel the atmosphere of what it like to be really hosting a crowd of, I think, over 3,500 people from
Nice.
worldwide. So I definitely want to stick up on stage somehow or another. I hope the security doesn't howl me out. So I think of course, you can go to extremes like this friend of mine, Gordon, but there are other ways you could also familiarize yourself with the area. I think the common knowledge is, of course, the common recommendation is that people will recommend that you go to the venue early so that you can familiarize yourself with the ground, with the environment, have a feel of the technology that you'll be using. As we all know, sometimes technology tends to fail us when we need them most. And when your technology fails on you, this is where I think you will fumble and you start getting panicking about the whole thing. So it's good to come early to familiarize yourself, be
Yeah,
prepared
and
for any emergencies. Yeah.
on the technology, I like
Yeah.
to walk around the room. I'm not a stage speaker. Like if it has to be on stage, I will, but I like to walk around the room. So I'll often take the microphone and test it all throughout the room so that I don't get that we've all seen that microphone feedback, right? Where it's like,
Yes.
and it's like very distracted. So I will often even test my mic walking around the room just to make sure, that way I know I won't put myself in a bad spot. So that's an extra tech tip.
Yes, so I think that's a brilliant tip. And of course, riding on you visualizing someone in the audience giving you those spurs of motivation, right? I think one other thing that it will be really useful is when you are early, have some small conversations with the crowd, with the audience, so that when you go up on stage eventually, you will realize that, hey, you are actually speaking to several familiar faces. And we all know it's always easier to speak in a familiar setting as compared to a foreign setting. Yeah, so the more people you get to speak before your actual speech itself, the better it's going to be, because you will know. I mean, it's going to be like just a friendly meeting. So do you do that as well?
I've even brought people with me if it's going to be an engagement that I don't know anybody at, because I like to have people interact and share success stories sometimes, depending on the presentation. And I love it for BNI meetings too. So I might bring somebody with me to help share. But yeah, and I don't like, the funny thing is I will tell you how to network. I know how to do it. It's not my favorite things. And so I have way more fear. Like, Tiffanie, go speak on a stage to 1,000 people. Okay, good, ready. Go network with 50 people. Oh my gosh, this is like, that's where my fear comes from. I'd much rather speak on stage than do the networking, but it's so much easier when you can connect. And what I love to do, if I happen to be going in BNI, we know the members, so we've already got that relationship. But if I'm speaking at an outside group, and this is a tip I learned from Dr. Meisner, is I ask somebody in the group, hey, will you host me to introduce me to the people that are there? And so it takes away a little bit of that networking nervousness, and I can have that host walk me around and introduce me to people. And because I've already had a conversation with them, we're further along in that know, like, and trust, or VCP, as we like to talk about in BNI. So I love the idea of connecting with people before. And if you're really good, not that I do this often, you can even sometimes work what they've shared into the presentation if it fits. Yeah, if it fits.
Yes,
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
I think you could do two things. One, you could work it into your presentation, or since you raised the point, I think it will be useful to also give some spotlight to some of the people you met at the event. I think it really helps, especially this is something I learned from my very good buddy Razi. I definitely feel he's one of the best networkers in Singapore. So he just came back to BNI, thankfully, and last week when we were at an event together, what Razi was doing is he was bringing me around, and he was specifically targeting individuals who were alone. So, and he goes to them, approaches them, and he comes up with these warm conversations, and they do appreciate him. So it's harder for sometimes for us to barge into a group of like 3-4 people, right? So we will go to look for those people who are kind of like isolated, and we bring them into the conversation. And that's really where you get to meet very meaningful friendships.
Awesome. Awesome. Love it. Okay. So you've given us 2. You promised us 3. Are we ready for tip number 3?
Okay. Yeah, so the final one, this one is from Simon Sinek. So definitely he's a better person to be delivering this. So you can actually look out for this YouTube video that he's speaking about. The final tip I have for you today, it's about changing the narrative. So Simon Sinek shares in one of his YouTube videos that he was watching TV on the London Olympics, and there was journalists going around there interviewing every single one of the athletes. And one awkward question which often came out was the journalist went to ask the athletes, are you nervous? And surprisingly, all the athletes gave the common answer. They said no. Instead, they claimed that they were excited. So Tiffanie, if you realize the stimulus or the symptoms of nervousness and excitement are actually very similar. Let's do this activity together. Let's think of what happens when we are nervous.
So when we're nervous, we get those butterflies in our stomach.
Yes, I think your heart pounds faster, right?
Yes. Sometimes the hands get sweaty or clammy.
Yeah. Hands get sweaty. Then I think you'll be in kind of like this position whereby you are ready to run. Sometimes not to run forward, sometimes to run away. Yeah. So I think this kind of like symptoms, if you think about it, it actually is excitement as well. I mean, I look a lot at my child who is 2.5 years old. He is what we call a pandemic baby. So he is born in the time whereby I think it's a pandemic. He doesn't really have a lot of interactions with the world out there. So as much as exploratory as they have, he always goes across being a bit cautious. But you can see when he's attempting something, there's no nervousness in him. Yes, he's approaching it cautiously, but he's actually very excited. So, writing on what Simon Sinek shared, right? He says you should change the narrative. Instead of telling yourself, I'm feeling nervous because I need to do this presentation to a large group of people. Why not tell yourself, change the narrative and tell yourself, hey, I'm excited to do this. And when you change the narrative from being nervous to being excited, I think what happens is you go from a position of paralysis, panic, to a position of empowerment, to a position whereby I think you can actually ace the entire show. And Simon also puts in this very good point. If you could reinforce the reasons by, I think, letting yourself know what's the meaning you're going to bring to the crowd through your speech, or what is it going to mean for you, I think definitely that's going to pack a real punch. I want to share a bit more. This is something very funny I did. If you remembered, I mentioned just now during my first presentation, right? What I did back then, this is a bit overdoing it, is I told myself, Andrew, this is your life purpose, to go out there to prepare this speech. This was when I was 20, so definitely some signs of naivety here. And I told myself, if once I go out there, I will ace this. And once I do it so well, because my life purpose is achieved, I will just vanish from the face of this earth. So just go out there and ace it. So this is what I did to prepare myself. And of course, I think I did not bad, but definitely not superb. Because I'm still here, I didn't vanish. And all I get to say is I'm still going through this journey of learning. Definitely tonight, if you observe me doing it, that I make mistakes as well. I'm not a perfect speaker, but I think what's important is really to go out there to enjoy this journey, this learning journey. And BNI, we do speak about lifelong learning, right?
It is about the lifelong learning. And there was 2 things I was thinking of as we were going through this, and I'm like, oh, I want to make sure that I mentioned both of them. First, this idea of energy and nervousness and that stimulation. I have a tendency to get like really ramped up, and so I actually have a little turtle that's hanging up on my light. It's an old school teeny beanie baby. His name is Speedy, to help remind me, because my nervous energy, I want to harness it. And if I can calm down, like if I can get started without being too Energizer bunny, then it takes 2-3 minutes for me. And I usually calm at a pretty even kill. So then it's not like the nerves go away. You're just getting into, maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's more of we're getting into the rhythm of what's going on. And so you're harnessing that energy. And then the second thing, because you talked about it doesn't have to be perfect. So I remember many years ago, I was at a NSA convention, and the NSA is the National Speakers Convention. And so there's professional speakers there, and it was the keynote opening day, and there were two presenters. There was one gal, and she'd been around as a professional speaker for decades. She did everything right, stood right, moved right. Like, you could tell that she spent a lot of time working on her presentation. And there was this other guy who did most of it wrong. Now, he was not a professional speaker. He has an amazing story. I don't know if you've ever heard about the guy that took a paper clip and through a series of trades ended up with a house.
Wow.
And it was like early pre-social media, like it was just happening mid-2000s. And he stood behind the podium the whole time and was pointing at the screen instead of the computer to change screens. Like all the things that, like weren't perfect. But as I was driving home, I called my husband and I was talking to him, and I'm like, of the two, I liked the guy that was telling his story. Like, it wasn't perfect. It was authentic. And so even though like it wasn't perfect, it connected more. That sometimes I have a tendency, this is the energy and fast-paced me, to do a double clutch or combine words because I'm excited and energetic. And I do that in person, and I do that on my videos. Sometimes people are like, Tiffanie, why don't you edit that out of your videos? I'm like, that's how I am in real life. If I'm perfect on my videos and they see me in person and I say ain't or oops. And that's one of the things I love about lives is we're just authentic and we're being who we are. This is a conversation. It's not like we're, making it perfect with the recording and all that. We're just having a conversation. And I think sometimes, this narrative of what is this all about? I'm just having a conversation with 500 of my closest friends.
I think that's really great. I think like we mentioned earlier, right? A lot of times we just set that very perfectionist kind of or very high standard on ourselves. And I think often it creates that unnecessary pressure. I mean, I'm a victim of that, so I can resonate. So a lot of times it's really going out there and trying and enjoying. Really, end of the day, I think even when we rewatch the video, it's us that will spot all the funny stuff. I think most people don't care, or they will just move on with their lives. So a lot of times we get too bothered about how we portray ourselves to a greater crowd. Yeah, but I think many times everyone is just very concerned about themselves, and no one actually bothers about one another. So don't have to worry too much about really getting there. Yeah,
that's usually one of my tips with being dealing with fear is, hey, most of the audience is just glad you're up there and not them. So we do have a question coming in from Kelly. So hello, Tiffanie and Andrew. Great discussion. Any tips for remote working when many discussions are now via video chats like this? Do you have any thoughts for Kelly? And while you're thinking about it,
yes.
One of the things, Kelly, and here's the thing, I actually love virtual. Now, don't get me wrong. If I had the choice of being in front of the audience or being on the computer, yes, 100% in front of the audience. However, there's how do I travel to get there? There's setup, there's breakdown, there's a lot of other stuff going on. So the actual presentation, yes, I prefer in person. Everything else, I prefer virtual. However, I think you just have to realize, okay, what's going on with the audience? How do you interact with them? And so if you notice, I'm kind of looking right here and it looks like I'm looking at you. However, I'm staring at the green little light on my camera on top of my computer. For some people, if you have a hard time remembering to look there, maybe put a smiley face or an arrow. I try and only look down at the computer like I am now when Andrew's talking. So engaging with the audience straight on is really great. If we're on,
I don't know where am I looking, so I'm definitely very terrible in that. I think I have two tips here. One of it, right, is if you're doing many video conferences, be aware of timing and learn to strike that work-life balance. Because I realized, when we went from the old norm and straight into the pandemic, right, we had so many video calls, and it's like literally every other hour you are jumping onto a call. What I realized back then is although we are doing a lot, we feel that we are doing a lot, but we are actually very not productive. And sometimes I think because of this, the lines are great. It's very easy for us to be going into times whereby it should be for family, it should be for rest, and we are still working. So being mindful of that, I think it's very important. And the other thing is, of course, especially when it's like a video conference like this, naturally those who are more soft-spoken will get overlooked. They may not have the opportunity to share. So I think it's important that we also give, I mean, we open up the floor to more voices so that more people can be heard. Especially, I think in the pandemic, a lot of people were jumping onto live streams. So everyone was literally talking. But my question was back then, who is actually listening? In fact, what we did back then was we wanted to launch like a Zoom chat and come on board so that we can listen to you. Yeah. So I think it's good to have listening as well. So these are my tips. I hope it was relevant.
Yeah, and one other thing I like to do when I'm on Zoom, especially if I can engage in the audience, can I ask them a question that they put in the chat? Can we use a poll? For presenters, and this is whether you're in person or virtual, though I think virtual is magnified, you want to make sure that you're breaking up your presentations. I can't quote where I heard this, but you really want to make a change every 4 minutes. Now, whether that's a change of let's look at the slide, whether you move to a different part of the room, maybe you're talking loud, but now you get quiet, so people have to lean in. Whether it's an exercise, hey, raise your hand. If we can have that change every couple of minutes, it will help keep people engaged. Because let's be honest, when it comes to virtual presentations, there's a lot of people that are multitasking, which we can't do, that are multitasking when watching a virtual presentation. And I'm guilty of it sometimes too. Shame on me, because you can't multitask. That's a whole different conversation, whole different program. And so I think it's important for us to do stuff to engage the audience. And if it's 30 seconds, it's not a big deal. But for BNI members on your featured presentation, whether you have 6, 8, 10 minutes, depending on your chapter size and your region, you really want to give some consideration to, okay, is it just me talking for 8 minutes straight? Or is it me talking for 4 minutes and then I tell this joke that's on the screen for 3 seconds? And then I move on to like, how are we doing this? And the goal is to keep people engaged, and it's harder online. So Kelly, I think, Andrew and I have a couple of tips for you there. I certainly have more of them. I probably have several videos on my YouTube channel about delivering virtual presentations. If I don't, I maybe will in the next couple of weeks.
You have, so yeah, you should check out your channel.
There's lots of videos there. And here's the thing. I don't like watching videos of myself. Like, I just got this brand new camera in because my old webcam died last week, and my computer webcam, and it's a 4K, and I'm really struggling with the fact of like, you can see everything. It's like super high definition. I kind of like the low definition of me better. And that's me in my head. I still don't like myself on video, and I'm doing lives and putting content out there probably on a weekly basis. Wow. I've heard rumor, though I haven't looked this up, that William Shatner has actually never watched an episode of Star Trek because he doesn't like watching himself. Now, that doesn't seem like William Shatner, but I don't know him, so maybe. But there's plenty of people that don't like yourself on camera, but it's a great way to see what you're doing and check out and maybe harness some more of those fears when it comes to your speaking.
Yes. I think Johnny Depp as well. He did mention about it. So he doesn't watch the movies that he acts in. Yeah. And he declared it on stage.
I know I've seen an interview with Daniel Radcliffe from Harry Potter that says he's just like so embarrassed to watch what he did in Harry Potter 1 and 2. And so we get better. We get better with age. Yes. Hopefully we're doing better things in the speaking world. So we've given you a ton of stuff in this idea of overcoming the fear of public speaking. What else would you like to add, Andrew, before we wrap up?
I just have one final quote for them. So would you want me to wrap this up for you?
Let's hold the final quote for just a moment.
For sure.
Because I'll let you wrap us up with that. However, if people are looking to find you, learn more about you and your business, tell us where we can find you. And tell us what it is that you do. I mean, we're talking about public speaking, but tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah. So interestingly, I just landed myself into a new role earlier part of this year. So I represent a fast-growing tech-driven corporate services firm. And I think what we call ourselves Starboard, and I think what Starboard wants to do is we want to empower the ambitions of an entrepreneur by removing all friction it takes to run their business. So of course, it starts from removing all the boring accounting work, taxation work from them, so that we only bring them numbers that make meaning to them, and so that they can make key decisions. And on top of it, we have a very engaging team that not only does the work, but we want to play a significant role in our client success. So we don't just do our clients' work. We want to help them through an ecosystem by creating more, opening new avenues for them by priming their business for future growth. So that's a bit of what we are doing. I will be exhibiting at the global convention as well. So if you're coming to Singapore, I'll be really very happy to see you at Resorts World Sentosa. I think it's going to be in 1 or 2 weeks' time, right? It's
Soon,
so
yes.
fast. Yeah.
All right. And where can people find you online or connect with you?
They can
reach
find
out
me
to
on
you?
LinkedIn. I think what is going to happen in the coming weeks is I want to launch the Notorious Networker tag. And thank you so much for this platform. I think I want to start sharing a bit of content on some of the networking mistakes that I've made over the years. And hopefully by reading them, I think people can avoid this and get better at this art.
Awesome. Awesome. And if you ever need some hacks, I've got like a whole book worth of, the 4.5 networking mistakes, all the mistakes that the experts tell you to make. So yeah, let's get those wrong things out there. Let's get those hacks out there so that people can create some amazing success when networking. Well, I want to
Yes,
say
I'll
thank you,
definitely grab your
everybody.
book as well.
Huh?
I will definitely grab your book as well.
I want to say thanks everybody for being here, watching this, whether you are live or whether you are watching this on YouTube. And this week, apparently the theme is presentations. Tomorrow, I'm going to be interviewing Diane DeResta as she talks about her book, Knockout Presentation. So how to deliver your message with power, pizzazz, and punch. Get it? Knockout. So that will be coming with us live tomorrow. So thank you, Andrew, so very much for being here with us today. And you have a closing quote for us.
Yes, so we started the evening, the morning, speaking about fear being false expectations appearing real. Then we talk about managing our expectations, embracing growth. Let's not go for perfect. Okay, I gave you 3 tips: visualize, familiarize, and of course, change the narrative. Now I just want to end with a new definition of fear as well. So FEAR can also mean feel excited and rise. So hopefully with this, we can all rise and improve our craft as we overcome this mini fear in public speaking that I believe every single one out there has.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, Andrew. Thank you so very much for everybody that was out here watching. Kelly said thank you for the comments on her question. I look forward to seeing y'all hopefully tomorrow. Happy networking.